Welcome to the SJ Child Show. Thank you for all your continued support. You can find us at sjchilds.org. Enjoy the show. Hi, and thanks for joining the SJ Child Show. Today's guest is someone who I'm just thrilled to talk to. I can't put even an adjective to it, and I'm so good at adjectives. But it's been a long time coming. I think that I reached out to Kerry in, I want to say maybe 2018 or 19, to do a review of my children's books that I had written way back then. I didn't have a podcast. I wasn't, building a name or reputation or an advocacy platform. Just was interested in meeting him and having his opinion on my book. And now we come so many years forward. Obviously, you'll all know and be excited to, hear from Dr. Kerry Magro. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, excited to be here. Yeah, long time coming.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, when I heard your voice, I was like, yes. And I've seen, of course, videos of you and everything, but it's just the in-person is so much more special and authentic to be able to just see your face. So
absolutely.
Yay. Well, for those of you who may not know your story, let's start from the very fun part, the beginning. I love that a lot of advocates, I'll say that and they'll say, well, I was born. That's my favorite line ever, right? That's yes. The exact place to start. So tell us about your journey.
I was born in a log house. No. My journey started as a non-speaking child. I was non-speaking until I was 2.5. And my parents back then, it was the early 90s, there wasn't a lot of education around autism or neurodiversity for that matter. So my parents started going to as many doctors as humanly possible. And it took 18 months. But in those 18 months, my mom just realized she had this epiphany and she's like, he must have autism. And sure enough, when I turned 4, I got diagnosed with a pervasive developmental disorder and otherwise specified. And that started kind of my journey in the autism world, even though I wouldn't learn about my diagnosis until I was 11 and a half. It was very much a lot of overcoming obstacles. I started speaking complete sentences when I was 7, had sensory integration challenges, emotional regulation challenges, but because of the support of my village, my family, and over 15 years of occupational physical speech, music, and theater therapy, I was able to overcome many of my obstacles. And today, I'm one of the only professionally certified public speakers who's also autistic in the country. And I love what I do. It's a labor of love. I also have a passion for it just because of my personal connection to this community. And I hope I can do this for many years to come.
Oh, I can't imagine you not doing it. It seems like a daily passion. I've been following you for so many years, and it's great to see how much growth, both of us have had over this time period.
Absolutely.
Just the amount of families and individuals that I see just constantly reaching out, and you are so engaging with your audience and with the families who are reaching out to you, which makes such a special experience for them to really, you're so graceful in your approach with them and your understanding with them. So tell us about how, kind of where it started becoming more than just you thinking about it or being autistic.
Yeah, I never expected this to be my life. I was the kid who was big into sports. I loved basketball. Mm-hmm. I could tell you all 30 NBA teams and every single player on one of those teams. That was my laser focus. So I started out my college career in sport marketing. I received an internship with CBS Sports. I was meeting incredible people like Jay Billis, Dan Marino, Shannon Sharp. And then right away, after I graduated in those 4 years, I also had an epiphany. And it was that there is really not a lot being done for the disability community.
Yeah.
So it pushed me to go back to school and then get my master's in strategic communications so I could focus on becoming a professionally certified public speaker. And I wanted to do something to support those who couldn't support themselves. And as we know in the disability world, even though some individuals are able to overcome many obstacles, other individuals need 24/7 care. And it truly is that spectrum.
Yeah.
So I never really even like, minus the Temple Grandins of the world, I was kind of like, do people actually do speaking for a living? And I was just looking up all these incredible disability advocates. I was learning more and more about individuals like Dan Aykroyd. It's on the autism spectrum and is actually a public speaker when he's not doing his acting career. And I thought to myself, if I push myself and I work hard enough, can I make this become my reality and my full-time profession? And it took a while. I was working in digital marketing for several years full-time before I could pivot to full-time speaking. But now we have one of the largest Facebook followings in the autism community at our Facebook page, Kerry's Autism Journey. And it gave us the opportunity to receive referrals from people around the world so we can make this into our full-time job, highlighting inclusion.
And the special things that you do, I'm sure if many of you don't know, or some of you do, that he does a special scholarship program where, I mean, how exciting and just rewarding for the community to know that they can like be backed by somebody who really has their best interests at heart.
Yeah. Well, I received minimal scholarship aid when I was going to college, and that was because I was terrible at standardized testing. And most scholarships look at GPA and SAT and ACT scores in addition to financial aid, en route to giving scholarships out. And I realized that a lot of the kids I was working with who are also autistic were having similar challenges. So I started the scholarship program in 2013 when I received 501c3 nonprofit status for my nonprofit KFM Making a Difference. Started giving out one scholarship a year, and then we were able to give out a bunch of partial scholarships each spring. And now we've given out 130 partial scholarships in the past 9 years, going on 10 years now. And it's just been a labor of love. Like I said, I sound like a broken record at times, but it's important to give back to a community that's given me so much and to pay it forward in any way that I can.
Oh my gosh, I just love it. And all these things are going through my head. I'm like, slow down, go back a little, Sarah. I want to ask all these things on top of everything else. What kind of support? You said you got a lot of speech and OT. Tell us a little bit about that. I know that parents that are listening will be interested to know how, once a nonverbal child, what types of supports did you receive to really help you build this amazing communication you have today?
I mean, speech was really, really pivotal. Being an only child and having challenges with things like limited pretend play, and then also not having a lot of peer-to-peer interaction, it was really, really challenging to even try to express my thoughts. When I was babbling, a lot of the times I really didn't want to express my babbling to adults who had full language. They were able to speak fluently while I was the kid who was just making sounds. So speech therapy gave me the opportunity to work with small groups of individuals, which was really, really helpful because many of the individuals I was working with had similar obstacles that I had to go through. So it was kind of leveling the playing field. So that was really pivotal. And then theater. Falling in love with theater. With my autism diagnosis, I've always had laser key focus, and theater and the opportunity to not only build on my social abilities, but playing different characters and understanding why other people had different feelings that I might not necessarily felt made the world open up so much more for me. And I think those were the two big things that helped me build on my communication. My parents realizing that also the goal is not speech, it's communication. And having a father who worked in digital information technology was also a big help as well.
lots of access to resources
Yes.
that, that's,
Yes.
and the knowledge of how to access resources. That's even something that people kind of take it for granted, that some people like your father and maybe, like myself, have worked in, I was a paralegal and I've done some really intense jobs where I had to do really big research about things. And it gave me this uh, intentions and this opportunity to be able to really know how to do deep kinds of research, which when it came to understanding my son's PDD NOS diagnosis and all that came with it, it gave me that like kind of a step up to be able to understand the information that was coming at me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Incredible.
absolutely. Resources. When I was back then, it was just Rain Man. And my parents were
Exactly.
like, I need to get him into math. I hope he has some visual memory, which I didn't. And that was challenging too. And
Yeah,
now resources I think are a little easier just because we live in a technologically savvy world. But we need to continue to push our legislators to continue thinking about the ever growing autism community and some of the services that we need across the lifespan to help the spectrum of people with autism succeed.
absolutely. And it's so cool that we have so many really amazing advocates right now, that are really coming to the forefront. Like you said, when you have people like Rain Man or Temple Grandin, and those are the only two ideologies of what autism is for the community to look at. It gives a really hard understanding to give, uh, you know, dignity to all of those that are in the different areas that go in between that, or overlap and all of the things. So it's so exciting now to see all the films that are making and documentaries, and the advocates that are building their platforms to tell their story. And that's something else that you love to do too, and that I see is that you promote, you help promote all of these other exciting up and coming advocates.
Yeah, it I realized right away, especially when I just started speaking full time, that I was going to a lot of conferences and I was meeting a lot of local self advocates, and kind of a theme from many of them that I talked to was that they really didn't have a platform to share their stories, and that they had a Twitter following of like 50 people or a social media following with like very limited resources
Yeah.
available. And I had built, just from my digital marketing background, a followership of like 100,000 on Facebook. And then I realized, why not just highlight self advocates every place I go, not only in the hopes of nurturing their own self advocacy, but for the up and comers in this community so they have a
Yes.
platform to share their
Mm.
stories on the national level. We now have 219,000 Facebook followers, and
Oh,
to see the expansion and to see how many parents, educators, therapists have resonated with all the self advocates we've highlighted has truly been amazing. We've highlighted a 6 month old with Down syndrome in the Bahamas, all the way to an Army veteran in his 70s who has cerebral palsy.
oh my
So
God.
it's kind of opened our eyes to neurodiversity and the understanding that we're not alone in this community. And we hope we can just build a platform for self advocates to
Yeah.
be able to share their stories.
It's so fun. I love having, advocates on to share their stories. And some of my favorite, not that so many people aren't my favorite, but some of my most heartwarming episodes, I'd have to say, are my sibling episodes. And like you, I'm an only child. You and I have a lot in common that way. And when I have these siblings on, and, you know, it's so beautiful. It's so
Yep.
beautiful, especially if maybe one of the siblings is more profound than and needs that extra challenging support. And that sibling that just like lives their life around this other sibling also lives their own, which is beautiful as well, right? But they integrate. And those are some of my very favorite stories to have on and to share, is to see that love and acceptance in families because it's somebody that has lived it every day, understands exactly what that sibling needs, and can sometimes, like in our case, understand the I like to call it puzzle talk, right? I'm the puzzle master. Oftentimes I'm decoding what type of sentences I'm hearing and how I can help manage the speech. So it's been an interesting journey, to say the least. So
Yeah, sure.
oh, so now that we are, in 2022, what do you think are the most important ideas that we can try to help our society with in neurodiversity? It's a big
Well,
question.
I think one of the big messages is continuing to have larger conversations with our companies and our schools about disability etiquette and making sure that individuals understand things such as person first language versus identity first language, where we're talking about person with autism versus autistic person. We I would love to just see our society do more in terms of validation of those who are on the autism spectrum and really get to listen to their viewpoints and opinions. I see a lot of awareness for disabilities overall, but I continue to harp on the fact that we haven't done enough to embrace acceptance, appreciation, and
Yes.
understanding. Bullying continues to be a large epidemic that we currently have in our schools, but also in our workplaces as well. It's a lifelong
Yeah.
challenge. And I would just love to see more kindness being promoted as part of that disability etiquette. And then the
Mm.
second thing is just grassroots movements focused on legislation to continue pushing what we need as a society. I mean, I just pushed out a video on my TikTok recently, which is just my name, Kerry Magro, where we were talking about, for example, the Judge Reinberg Center and how they still encourage electric shock devices on
Oh,
those with
heavens.
disabilities and those who are autistic. And they're the only center that still do that. And I pushed it out and I shared a bit.ly link, which went to a photo form that was created by the Autism Society of America. And I got 260 clicks on it. And I hope each one of them actually did message their congressional members to talk about
Yeah.
why this is not okay. I feel like as when we see things that are not being done, I get 250 to 300 questions every single day in my inbox from parents, educators,
Yeah.
self advocates. And a lot of the time it's about the services we don't have, the critical needs that we're not seeing our local and national officials actually talking about.
Mm.
It's important for all of us to find what those challenges are in our local areas and then speak up. Because Margaret Mead has a great quote where she talks about like one person can change the world. We just have to be brave enough to push that message that we're trying to get out there
Mhm.
to the masses.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And some people like you and I have this innate sense of passion within us to keep going, even though, yeah, we have days that we're tired or it's hard, or like you said, you're answering hundreds of questions a day. I'm not answering hundreds of questions, not yet, right? It's still to come. But at the same time, that feeling when a family does reach out and they're like, this has happened. What's your advice? I'm so proud that they know that number one, they can come to me to get an honest opinion. And number two, that they trust me enough with their child's challenge or support need that I could try to assist and help and try to find some of the successes that I've had, like you're doing, and offer it to the community.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, we have kind of just in a technology world we live in, I have an FAQ list because we realized right away a lot of the
Good
questions that we
thinking.
were getting were very, very similar in nature.
Yeah.
So we came up with just a
That's
list of
brilliant.
things like toilet training questions
Yeah.
and the non-speaking questions, applied behavioral analysis, and the ongoing debate about that therapy versus other therapies.
Yeah.
So we created a list, which is just available at bit.ly/autism FAQ list, where I provide my own answers to some of the most frequently asked questions. So if for whatever reason I get sick for one day, it's like I woke up with like a terrible cough this morning. I'm okay now.
Oh,
But if I
good.
didn't get the opportunity to answer 200, 300 emails, this is available for the community to take advantage of. And then if I didn't answer a question, on the very bottom, it says, if I did not answer your question, please email me at this email address and let's see what we can do to help. So,
Yeah. Oh, that's so wonderful. No, I love the support that you offer. Let's talk about some of the books. I mean, you have several books out there. And what are, first of all, what have you liked to write always? I mean, I know you liked sports and then the digital media. So where did this desire for writing? Was it just the need for the education?
well, at first it was pressure from my parents, honestly. Well, no,
Bless their
because
hearts.
I was dual diagnosed with a diagnosis called dysgraphia, which is a handwriting disorder. Had a lot of fine motor challenges. I could barely grip a pencil when I was in like pre-K and kindergarten. But also, with the other thing with dysgraphia is that sometimes you have issues with written thought and expressing thoughts on paper. And my parents really tried to push me to come up with short stories and role playing different stories that I wanted to create, fictional stories, in the hopes of building on that. And as I got older and decided to become a disability advocate, I got really into poetry. So I would write poetry, and that actually encouraged my first book, Defining Autism from the Heart, which was all about self advocacy, disclosure, and being able to write something to help other self advocates in our community not be defined by their diagnosis, but be embracing their diagnosis and who they are as people. And I assumed it would only sell like 3 copies, but it became an Amazon bestseller for special need parenting when it came out on Amazon 9 years ago. And it sparked my wanting to continue to write on topics that I think were impacting the community. So I wrote a book a year later called Autism and Falling in Love, about relationships for those on the spectrum, a children's book called I Will Light Up Blue, to go into the schools, especially for younger children, and teach them about autism and self-advocacy, because we say early intervention is the key, but I also believe that's true
Mm.
of individuals who do not have a diagnosis as well. That education hopefully will stay with them for their entire lives. And then my recent book, Autistics on Autism, which it's actually in the back here,
I love it.
ironically enough,
Yeah.
which highlights 100 self-advocates on what helped them growing up on the autism spectrum to succeed today as adults.
Several of our mutual friends in there. I love that. And
Yes.
so excited to celebrate them as much as possible. Absolutely. And I'm so excited to talk to you about this other little sign on the side of you that says something about love on the spectrum.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yes. Are you now? Have you? Is this the next coming up one? Is that what you're going to be doing, or did you do it on the previous one?
Yeah. So the first 2 seasons were in Australia, and I had been in contact with them about just helping with marketing and just trying to find self advocates to be casted on the show. So we had been in touch for a while, and them being based in Australia, it was challenging at time with the communication, but then we found out that they were going to have a US season. So we continued our conversations. And then I was talking to the director, Kian, who is just an incredible individual, who just received an Emmy for the US season 1, which was really exciting for everyone on the team. And I was like, hey, I think I can help you with this. And I'd already consulted on a few films and an HBO limited series as an autism consultant. So I told them a little bit about that. And then we did an autism training for the crew. before they started production for US season one. And we consulted throughout that entire 6 episode season. And now we're looking towards season two. And I'll hopefully be involved as well.
Oh, I love that. No, I agree. In fact, I remember the first time my husband and I saw the Australian season, and he was just like, Sarah, this is something you have to do. You have to reach out to them. Oh, you have to, you would be great at coaching. And this is before I had my own diagnosis, when I was just building, my books and my advocacy, but he just knows how passionate I am about it. And now that I know that it's just my tribe, right? And so I vibe with my tribe, and I see, and it's so fantastic to be able to make these connections. And, I never reached out to anyone except for Jennifer Cook. We've been in contact a
Right.
few times back and forth, but otherwise, and Danny, I had Danny on my
I
show
love Danny.
like a year or two ago. Oh, I love Danny too. She's just what a
And I love Jennifer.
phenomenal.
I
Oh
love
yeah.
Jennifer also. Yeah.
And all of I mean, I wish I knew more of the crew, to be able to have contact with them, or maybe I'll hit Danny up and say, "Hey, let's have a roundabout with some folks." But yeah, it's been so much fun to be able to see the growth for some of the people who have been in contact with. And for me, it's only been just a couple of years, and for you, you've been doing this for so long now, for a decade or more, and building your advocacy. So yeah,
I'm getting
congratulations.
older, getting older.
Well, I
Uh,
wasn't trying to do so, you
no,
look
no, no, no,
so
no. I'm
young.
kidding. Kidding.
Oh, great.
But yeah, especially Danny. Danny, we gave a scholarship via our nonprofit
Yeah.
Making Difference, and she was attending Woodbury University. And to see everything she's doing with her animation and starting Danny Light Studios, and just seeing all she does with the animation camps
That's
as well,
amazing.
she's incredible for sure.
Incredible. She's going around the world with her camps now. I just can't imagine um, what it would have been like to just, I'm so glad that we were able to be in touch so early on, and to see her be able to make all these big, huge steps. Haley Moss, another one I remember, right? Didn't she do a scholarship with you guys as well?
We never got the opportunity to link with a scholarship, but
Mm.
we talk every now and then. We were just at a conference in Florida together. We spent the day in Disney just hanging out.
Oh,
So
that's fantastic.
he is a
Love Haley.
phenomenal advocate,
Yeah.
and we both focus on primarily neurodiversity in the workplace. So we have connected several times with other organizations as well. So she is
Oh,
incredible as well.
yeah. Well, and that's exciting. You guys are on the East Coast together, so it makes it a little bit easier to connect. I'm all the way over here in Utah, so I have to, but I got Danny. I got Danny on my side of the world. I'll have to connect with her sometime, and so many other great people over here too. What is next on your plate? What's coming up next for you? What are your plans?
Yeah. So, I mean, I definitely want to turn my dissertation, which was a qualitative study. I graduated with my doctorate in education 3 years ago. And
Congratulations.
thank you. And I want to turn that study, which looked at perception and resources for parents of children newly diagnosed on the spectrum. I want to turn that into a tell all book, because we got so much great feedback from parents about the early just diagnosis, and we want to turn it into something that can benefit more families of newly diagnosed children. So that will be on maybe 2024, and then still working as a consultant on several different projects, looking at a limited series right now, which I signed a non-disclosure agreement, so I really can't talk about. But I have two NDAs signed where I'm consulting for projects, one film and one limited series, which hopefully will, after the pilot, become something a little bit bigger than
Yay.
that. And then, yeah, just expanding the nonprofit, expanding my speaking business, gain the opportunity to work with more companies on as part of professional development, because that's really something that I have a passion for. Because the unemployment rate for autistic adults is still way too high. Some studies say that's up to 90% in the United States.
Whoa.
We need to do a better job of tapping into this untapped talent pool. We just spoke with Alcoa this week, which is an aluminum company in PA. We're going to be speaking with the New York Times tomorrow.
Yeah.
I know this is pre-recorded, but we will be speaking with them about neurodiversity. So we're just hoping that in the podcast we do in our media interviews that we can encourage more companies that hear us talk about this topic, just reaching out to us in the hopes of potential collaboration opportunities to discuss this form of professional development in the hopes of making those numbers smaller and smaller. As we're in 2022, we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the past 40 years. So I don't understand why there's such a huge divide when it comes to the autism community. So we hope to help with that.
Agreed. Let's just make sure we can cross support one another and make it happen. I agree. And anyone that is in legislation that's listening, if you want to get in touch with Dr. Magro with Gary, then please do that, and let's see how we can further make these changes that are so important for our community, especially moving forward in the future. Let's be prepared, not be caught off guard and have to backtrack services and support systems and accommodations. The more we have in order, the better it will be for our kids, our grandkids. You don't have kids yet, but for me, that's on my mind. Like I want to see them have a better opportunity in their future to get the services and support they need. Absolutely. It's been such an honor to chat with you today.
Likewise.
I had a little voice in my head. I know exactly who and why it's there. And it was my friend David Sharif. And he always looked up to you so much and talked to me about you so much. So I just wanted to tell you that and let you know that he really looked up to you, Kerry.
Yeah, I honestly get it's really he would reach out to me via Facebook Messenger and just give me so many warm thoughts. I don't think I recall anyone who I've ever met on social media who shared more of my content.
Yeah.
And he just seemed like, and I didn't really have the opportunity to get to know him that well, but he just seemed like a very kind soul. And several people reached out to me when he passed and just told me about just that connection.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, it really touched me.
I know, me too. Sorry, I didn't mean to get emotional right at the last second. No. I know, like sometimes I feel him pushing me and I get ideas that I wouldn't have hadn't, if I hadn't have made. And that was one of those sibling episodes that I told you about, was him and his brother Ben. And since then, I have stayed in touch with Ben and Karen and Sahid, their father. I try to chat with him as much as possible and just, share my journey with them. And it's so special and exciting. And I know that he's happy that I shared that information with you. Call me a medium, if you will. I don't know. No, thank you so much. Before we go, though, please let everyone know where they can follow you. I know that you said it a couple of times, but where's some great places we can follow you on social media and your website?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. You can check out my website, just kerrymagro.com. If you're interested in booking me for a speaking engagement. We speak in schools, but we also speak in companies as part of professional development, neurodiversity in the workforce panels, and even small group presentations for businesses. So that's what we kind of do for the majority of our speaking. In addition to that, all over social media, you can check us out on Facebook at Kerry's Autism Journey, Twitter, Kerry Magro. Instagram is just autistic professional speaker. TikTok is also just my name, Kerry Magro. That's where we have our second largest following after
Yay.
Facebook. And yeah, we're just those are the ways that you can. And also, if you're trying to reach out, just any questions, you could go to kerrymagro.com/contact.
Definitely check out that FAQ list to double check
Yes.
so your questions can be answered without having
Yes.
to wait for a response just in case. So,
Yes.
thank you so much for providing such amazing resources, all your advocacy work. And like I said, it's been a long time coming, an honor, and I hope we can stay in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so amazing to see everything you've done as well, and just starting off with the children's books all the years back before COVID. Now seeing
Right?
everything you're doing. This is season 6, I believe you were telling me.
Season
So
6.
we're
Yeah.
really awesome to see everything that you're doing
Thank
too.
you. Thank you so, so much. And yeah, everybody that's listening, this will be season 6 headline episode. You'll be kicking us off for our season 6, which will be on the 1st of January. So very soon coming up. So everybody will know that day, obviously, because they're listening. But thank you so much. It was such an honor and a pleasure. And yeah, we'll definitely be in touch.
Awesome. Sounds good.